Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Hello.
Joe Gimateo.
I would actually like to go by the name Quang now.
But are you a master of the martial arts?
I'm not. Never mind.
I'm Jason Bartlett. That's no relation to Rob Bartlett. That's been proven yet. And we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. The next time you tune in to us, this is the final episode of Raw so far. We're going to cap off 1994 here, get caught up to speed, and then the next time an episode is released, it will be at our usual format of one episode of Raw per one episode of Wrasslin Raw. So, that being said, I'm ready to get into it. How about you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Ready.
All right, so we're going to start off the second half of 1994 with May of 1994, and that's with Raw 61, airing on May 2nd. And we start this one off with a little bit of a bang. The end of an era, gentlemen. The first match of the night, the Head Shrinkers defeat the Quebecers to win the WWF Tag Team Championship belts. Joe, get us started on that one. I couldn't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, it is the end. It's the end of the Quebecers run. And I actually have some interesting news to share when we get to the May news session. So I'll share that later.
Okay. Ryan?
I mean, it's just great to see the Quebecers finally lose the belts, right? The head Shrinkers, not exactly the best tag team around, but they're going to do for now. They're at least a little bit better than the Quebecers. So, and we're going to get Rikishi. Rikishi's in this, a future Hall of Famer. So
yeah,
that's kind of exciting. But the most exciting thing is definitely just the fact that the Quebecers themselves do not have the belts anymore. So yay for that.
Do we know how long that run was? I mean,
oh geez,
it was months.
We could probably do some math here. But
yeah.
It was close.
Half a year?
Yeah, just about, because Steiner's lost it to Money Inc. And then Steiner's won it back from Money Inc. And then the Steiners lost it to the Quebecers in that bullshit Province of Quebec rules match.
Yes, yeah.
Too long. Just months and months.
Enough said there. Like I agree with you guys, definitely. It's very nice to see the Quebecers not being the champions here. I'm a little more positive on the Head Shrinkers, though, I think. It's not that they had really a whole lot of, other tag teams that they were trying to compete against as far as putting on a show goes. They didn't really have anybody pushing them to be better. But of the tag teams that are in the WWE at this time, I would prefer the Head Shrinkers over just about any of the other ones. I mean,
I don't mind the Head Shrinkers. They're fine as the tag team champs. They're not fantastic by any means, but they're serviceable here. Yeah. And I'll certainly take it.
I mean, they're no Bam Bam and Bastion Booger, but
let's not forget to thank Friar Ferguson for the Quebecers no longer having the belts.
Bless Friar Ferguson.
Yeah,
that is going to be my replacement for thank God for something. It's thank Friar Ferguson from now on.
Don't forget, we did get that 3-second title reign for 1, 2, 3 Kid and Marty Jannetty there at some point.
True. Yeah, nobody got their necks broken. Thank Friar Ferguson.
Yeah, they teased us a little bit with that one.
I thought for sure someone's neck was going to get broke.
We weren't lucky enough to have it be Pierre. But we'll move on from here. Suffice to say, we're all very happy that the Quebecers aren't really going to be in the mix that much anymore.
Just real quick, Bartlett, you got to tell your story of Pierre, what you've run into that we didn't even realize.
Oh, yeah. So I was in Pittsburgh couple weeks ago for an Iron Maiden concert, and we were at the hotel room sitting there having drinky poos and just, generally getting warmed up for the concert. And I'm flipping around on the TV. I don't have cable here at home. I rely solely on streaming services and the WWE network for my entertainment. So it was kind of a, exploratory thing, just seeing what was on the airwaves out there. And I came across Ring of Honor, which I was really excited about because I very rarely get to watch Ring of Honor in a televised setting. It's usually in online clips and everything. Lo and behold, they start this, there's a match, and the crowd starts this chant, and it sounded like the ECW chant. So everybody's going nuts, and I was and still am a pretty big ECW fan from back in the day. So my first thought was, why the fuck are they chanting ECW? But to my surprise, they were chanting PCO. And I was like, what the, as soon as that dawned on me, I was like, what the fuck is PCO? And then out comes Pierre Carl Ouellette. Fucking Pierre.
Was he singing the Mounties song?
No. Listen, man. So it wasn't that great. First of all, what I'm about to say is going to make me sound like I like it, but I really didn't. So
51 years old.
51 years old. The dude is jacked. He's in the best fucking shape of his life.
Steroids, a hell of a drug.
I don't know, man. He didn't look quite, the rounded off look that steroids give a person, but motherfucker was huge.
At 50 some years old?
Well, yeah, that's true. But still. And the crowd loved him. They were going ape shit for him. He was in like a 3-man tag team match, and then he went back to the backstage.
How'd he look?
Just as shitty as he was in 94.
I mean, for the fans to be like excited about him.
They just like to chant stupid shit now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I chalked it up to. So from what I saw there, not just him, but everything, it didn't really seem like there was a whole lot to be excited about in general. So I think maybe they were just kind of clawing on to anything they possibly could. But I don't know. It was a very limited experience, and I just, for the most part, sat there holding a drink in my hand with my jaw on the floor, just amazed that people were this interested in PCO.
Pierre.
Let's not give Pierre any more time.
Yeah. I do not think he's upgraded the fake eye, though. I think it's the same one from 94. So, okay, getting back on track here. Raw 61, May 2nd. The second match of the night, Joe, I think you always like this one. Tatanka defeats a jobber by the name of Derek Domino.
Yes, Eric Clapton.
So there were only 3 matches in this Raw, the last being a Yokozuna 2-on-1 handicap match, and it was just not that great.
Yokozuna with jobbers is just not good. It made me hate Yokozuna.
Yokozuna is so terrible, he has to have a great wrestler in the ring to make him look good.
Correct.
Yeah, but he treats jobbers like shit. Like he was landing bonsai drop full weight on these guys. Where
they should have put him in the ring with Moreldo.
He would have killed him.
Moreldo would have made him look good.
There's no way nobody had broken ribs from this,
From his 600-pound girth driving into their chest.
Girth all over them.
Even his thighs have ass cheeks.
Even 2 guys can't handle the girth.
God.
Double wide, double deep.
Yeah, but like we said in our last episode, the first part of 1994's Raw so far, Yokozuna's on the decline here as far as, well, I mean, his match quality has been on the decline, but this is, from here on in, this is one of the somewhat rare occasions where he's at the top of a card. And we can't even really call this like a headliner because it's him and 2 jobbers. I don't know what they were going for with, maybe trying to like put on like a spectacle of a 2-on-1 and, oh my God, the beast Yokozuna, but it didn't work. But there's something that's much, much, much more important than Yokozuna. There are many things that are much more important than Yokozuna, but there is something that needs to be discussed immediately, though. We get our first King of the Ring Raw or first Raw report for the upcoming King of the Ring with Todd Pettengill. And Todd Pettengill, I know you both love him as well as I do, but the big thing about this, though, is Todd reveals that Baltimore Colts legend Art Donovan will be a special guest analyst for the entirety of 1994's King of the Ring. Ryan, Art Donovan, what do you think?
I'm pumped. I mean, how could this go wrong, right? The legend Art Donovan.
Yeah.
There's no way that this can't be great, right?
Right. Exactly.
I don't want to give on too much. We'll talk about that very soon, though.
How much does he weigh?
Do you guys actually enjoy doing this?
All right. Yeah, we will definitely talk more about the amazing Art Donovan whenever it's time to discuss King of the Ring here. Moving on in this particular episode of Raw, some stuff going on that you might remember from the last episode. We've got some highlights of the Tatanka IRS feud and Chief Jay Strongbow talking about it. If those of you out there, the 2 or 3 subscribers that we have, remember from the last episode, there was some issues with Tatanka's ceremonial headdress and not paying the gift tax. IRS didn't like that too much, tore up the headdress. And Chief Jay Strongbow is telling everybody that IRS has insulted their entire people.
The Italian people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Strongbow.
Strongbow was Italian, right? Not
being of the Mediterranean persuasion.
Tatanka was a true natural.
Yes.
Native American.
Yes. Lumbee tribe. Yep. Yeah. So, Strongbow says IRS insulted their entire people and Tatanka is on the warpath, because we just had to get a little bit of a stereotypical Indian phrase in there. Something a little more interesting. We've got an episode of King's Court here going on, and King's Court is going to ramp up a lot here, folks. Just going to tell you now, there's going to be pretty much a King's Court in every episode of Raw going forward until either King of the Ring or SummerSlam. I can't remember which, but it's going to be like practically every week. So get used to hearing the phrase King's Court. And one of you guys can refresh my memory on this, but as to why this is, but Lawler starts off King's Court insulting Roddy Piper in Piper's Pit. Is this maybe because Alundra Blaze told him that King's Court was a low-rent Piper's Pit? That might be it. But he starts off insulting Roddy Piper kind of out of nowhere. He goes on to talk shit on Razor Ramon for having lost the IC title during the previous Superstars. And then he brings out the new Intercontinental Champ, Diesel. Now remember, the last time we talked, Razor Ramon was the IC champ. So just to keep things in order, this title change happened on an episode of Superstars, not in anything that we've talked about here. So the episode of Superstars that Diesel beats Razor Ramon to win the belt had aired on April 30th, FYI. Diesel tells Lawler he can call him Big Daddy Cool, and I'm pretty sure that's the first time we hear that, isn't it?
I believe so.
After some banter, yeah, because it struck me whenever I heard it.
Big Daddy Cool.
Yeah, that goes on to be kind of like a catchphrase for him almost.
I think even to this day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big Sexy, Big Daddy Cool.
Yeah, and they go back and forth. There's some banter, and then Diesel indicates that Bret Hart and the WWF Championship belt are next on his list. Joe, did you have thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, first off, I love King's Court. I love all of them. They're great. But yeah, this is the start to the Diesel push that we're going to see, which happens very quickly. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
He's a big man.
Yep.
He is huge.
Stroking that glove hand.
Yeah, my God, the amount of times that he strokes that glove.
He's got that airport wow factor.
Very true.
It's like he didn't know what to do with his hands. So just keep doing that over and over.
Let's just keep on rubbing them together.
After 3 years of that, it wound up with him having a right hand that's bigger than his left because it's mostly callous on the top now. That's why he's wearing that glove, to hide his over-rubbed hand. So moving on here, also in Raw 61, we have an update on The Undertaker. Random people across America have been seeing The Undertaker in various places. Ryan, you were a fan of this, weren't you?
I've mentioned before, I'm a fan of almost everything The Undertaker does, outside of a couple American flags sewn into the coat type things. But these were entertaining, just like everything else. They show these just morons across America that have had these Undertaker sightings, and they're pretty humorous moving forward. And I enjoyed this one, and we'll probably talk about a few more in the future here.
Very low budget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I still of all of them, my favorite is still the deli worker from the last episode of Raw so far.
The deli worker's pretty good, yeah.
The pickles.
Because the Undertaker is going to order a 6-foot wedge.
How would he? It seems like an Undertaker sandwich.
Well, maybe like a quarter of it would be for the Undertaker. The other 3/4 would be for Paul Bear.
Extra mayonnaise.
Yeah.
You think that's all Paul Bear would order?
Well, and a pickle.
And maybe a whole nother sandwich.
He was at the gas station down the street getting some gas station sushi. So to cap off this episode of Raw, we have Vince and the Macho Man Randy Savage talking to Earthquake at ringside, where he issues a challenge to Yokozuna to prove who is the biggest man in the WWF. If everybody will remember from our last episode of Raw, we talked about the return of Earthquake and how, as short-lived as it is, Earthquake is a legit badass. That can't be highlighted enough here. All of these other guys, a good chunk of them are good in-ring workers. There's no disputing that, and I'm sure they could kick some shit up, but Earthquake is legit. So just keep that in mind going into this. And Yokozuna is not. So maybe that's probably the bigger point. Really no notable happenings for this episode, so we're going to move it on to Raw episode 62, aired on May 9th. And Joe, you'll be sad to see that the first match is Razor Ramon defeating Master of the Martial Arts Kwang in a King of the Ring qualifier.
We joke, but I remember this match not being terrible. It's not terrible.
It wasn't all that bad.
Fucking
No.
Kwang apologist.
Watch May 9th Raw. It's not bad.
We have Razor Ramon, and you have Kwang, who, outside of the gimmick being ridiculous, isn't a terrible in-ring worker. So this does turn out to be a pretty decent match. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, God. All right. All right. That's fine. Everybody has their opinions. He's not as good as Crush, because Crush defeats Ray Roy.
Yeah, Kwang, after the Kwang match, Kwang went to the back and was like, fucking follow that, Crush.
Mabel defeats Mike Bell.
Good old Mike Bell.
Oh.
Yeah, we've touched on him before, the poor soul.
Yeah. The poor soul. But as far as matches go, that's about it. Nothing too interesting. In the promos and interviews, we get a brief promo from the garbage dump. Duke the Dumpster's coming soon. I can hear you chuckling over there, Ryan. We love Duke the Dumpster, don't we?
Oh, man. This is as bad as it. I mean, just his name, when you kind of know it's going to be bad, this promo was just as bad as the name would imply.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy's just good at nothing.
A dumpster fire.
I mean, he might be a hell of a garbage man, but anything wrestling related, he is good at nothing.
This is one of those literal examples of you really shouldn't quit your day job, pal. Yeah, so always fun seeing Duke the Dumpster in there. One of the other cool things that we get to see here in this episode of Raw is a highlight reel of Earthquake's sumo career. Like I said before, Earthquake, legit badass. I want to say his record was 26-0, 25-0.
Yes, or I know it was undefeated, whatever it was.
I know he didn't make it past 30. So it's either 25 or 26-0.
It was 20-something and 0, yeah.
But yeah, legit badass.
It was interesting to see because he was an actual sumo wrestling champ, where Yokozuna was kind of like, not really. So they had all this footage of Earthquake in his Yokozuna days, or I'm sorry, in his sumo wrestling days, but we don't really see anything about Yokozuna during his days.
Gee, I wonder why. He was too busy eating 60 pounds of rice in a sitting. 1/6 of his body weight.
Yeah, I loved Earthquake when I was young. He was one of my all-time favorites.
Right here is, I really like Earthquake right now at this time, so it's a shame that it didn't last long.
Yeah, he would have been a nice breath of kind of not quite fresh, but at least better air.
Yeah, obviously he's coming back, so it wouldn't be fresh, but it's a hell of a lot better than Yokozuna.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see the debut of Earthquake on YouTube, where Jimmy Hart pulls him out of the crowd?
No,
he's obviously not Earthquake. He's just some huge guy that Jimmy Hart brings into the ring. It's Dino Bravo and Ultimate Warrior feud. It had to be late 80s. Jimmy Hart calls this guy into the ring, and you got to look it up. Look it up on YouTube. Just type in Earthquake debut. You'll see it.
Duly noted. Thank you, Joe. I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds pretty cool. I like Jimmy Hart too, so. Yeah, we get highlights from his career, and then later on in this episode of Raw, Jerry Lawler goes and finds Earthquake somewhere in the backstage, and Earthquake accepts the sumo challenge. So that's pretty awesome. We're going to get a sumo match on Raw. I don't know about you guys, but whenever this was going on, whenever we were watching this, I was pretty excited about this just because I knew Earthquake's reputation as a sumo wrestler. He was always a good worker in the ring, selling, working, all that stuff. But I was very, very excited and curious to see how he was going to transition his legit sumo training into a worked scenario. You know what I mean?
Not to mention, this is one of those matches that I distinctly remember from my childhood. It was almost like it was yesterday when I saw Earthquake come out in his white trousers or whatever that he had on in that fight. Like it was, like I said, just like yesterday. This match sticks out in my head like a sore thumb.
Yeah, it was weird. It was just like a one-off thing, too.
It was, but it was memorable for me.
Yeah.
For I guess just because it was a different match. They had a sumo wrestling match, and so that made it stick out.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, anytime, not to give away a spoiler here, but anytime Yokozuna loses is always a good time. So the other thing that we've got going on here, something that's notable about Raw 62, is that this is in, let's see, what was it? The final match, against Mike Bell, the final match of the night. This is the first appearance of Mabel in open singles action. Mo, the other half of Men on a Mission, is injured and won't be back for several months, and we are all very sad. We mourn the loss of Mo. Joe, do you feel it like I do?
It's obviously a fake injury. Mo just sucks.
Is he as bad as Mabel, though? I mean, come on.
Yes. Yeah. They're both horrible.
At least Oscar's not injured.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Ocean.
Thank goodness. I don't know what we'd do if we didn't have him leading the charge to the ring. Things might get downright dull. But it's just definitely worth noting that we're not going to see Mo for a while here. We didn't really see him much to begin with because in all of their previous tag team matches, it was mostly just Mo for the first 2 or 3 minutes and then Mabel in there being fat and cleaning up. Vince screaming about how huge he is. It's not like Mo was ever really there to begin with. Mo, we hardly knew ye.
Make way for King Mabel.
Yeah. So next up, we've got Raw 63 airing on May 16th, 1994. Match-wise, Mike Moraldo shows up. Diesel defeats Mike Moraldo, Ryan. I don't know if you noticed that, but...
I did. I remember that match, and like always, Mike Moraldo, man, he sold it.
He enhanced.
He certainly enhanced Diesel. The final match of the night, though, is Earthquake defeating Yokozuna in the sumo match.
Thank God.
Ryan, what are your notes that you had on this one here?
Well, I mean, I was just mentioning because of how going forward, this is going to be such a long feud between Yokozuna and Earthquake. It's months in the making, I think, right? Or am I wrong on this? Is he going to be gone in just like a week or two?
He's gone in like a week.
I know.
That's the joke, folks.
It might be like the next day.
Yeah, he is not going to be around much longer, but I loved this feud when I was young, and it just leaves in the snap of a finger. It's gone.
This was probably the last hurrah for Yokozuna.
Yeah. And this is the very last time we see Earthquake outside of a house show,
yeah.
right?
WWF anyway. But
Right.
Thank God he won the match.
Yes.
I don't know what I would have done if Yokozuna would have won that. That would have just totally shattered my reality.
Harry Carey.
You would have cried first.
Probably. Started tying off a noose. But that's good. That's a good way to, match-wise, I mean, it's a great way to end the show with a loss to Yokozuna, or for Yokozuna.
And it's a good ending for Raw. It's a big match.
And months of build up.
Yeah, I was happy with the overall like sumo thing going on. They took the ropes off. If I remember correctly, the announcers were making a big goddamn deal about how they took the ropes off the ring.
Yeah, they're preparing the ring.
Yeah.
Went to commercial break and everything.
Yeah, they got it done in all of 4 minutes. But in promos and interviews for this episode of Raw, some guy pumping gas saw the Undertaker riding the roof of a hearse down the street before just completely disappearing.
Man, the guy they interviewed for this, the only thing I could think of was Dupe the Dunkster Josie. He looked so disheveled and dirty and just scummy. Like he looked like he just crawled out of a dumpster. This guy that's filling up his Firebird with some gas as he's telling this story.
Firebird.
Yeah.
He's a slinger with Duke.
Just absurd, but hilarious.
I definitely agree with you on that one. I thought the more interesting aspect of this was that the Undertaker was riding the roof of a hearse down the street. So, like, was he surfing on it?
They should. I was just gonna say they should have had him surfing, playing like Beach Boys or something.
That was the part I didn't get. Was he supposed to be riding it? Like, what the hell was he doing that he was on top of the hearse, not driving it?
Yeah. And I did, like, how did he disappear? Did he just, like, vanish in the blink of an eye, or did he get rolled off whenever it took a hard turn, or what?
Did the whole hearse disappear, like in a puff of smoke? Yeah.
Man, some of these questions really, I think they really need answers. Once we become, like, super famous and have, like, over 24 subscribers.
Maybe we could track that guy down.
Call that 900 hotline.
Yeah. Number no longer in service. What's that say? What's the message that they put up? This number is no longer active or something like that.
No longer active, I think. Yeah.
But moving on here, King's Court. This was a good one. Jerry the King Lawler does some more shit talking on Roddy Piper, and his guests are the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Nikolai Volkov. If you guys will remember from our last episode of Wrasslin Raw, the Raw so far for the first half of 1994, Nikolai Volkov had been showing up to house shows and Raw tapings in this same suit over and over and over again, and was generally portrayed as a poor, broke son of a bitch, even though he could afford a show ticket every fucking week. There was some talk of somebody hiring Nikolai. Jerry the King Lawler invited Nikolai Volkov up into the ring for a chit chat, and they talked about his hard times, and they threw it out there if anybody's looking to hire a man. Well, guess what? The $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase states that Nikolai Volkov is his newest purchase. Ted and Jerry both make fun of Volkov for being poor. The $1 Million Man says he took some money out of Volkov's paycheck to get him some new black and gold property of the $1 Million Man tights and a t-shirt with the same design. Instead of the S with the 2 bars through it, that, you know, the symbol that the $1 Million Man uses, this one has the cent symbol, the lowercase c with 1 line through it all over it. So it was quite clever, I thought.
On his ass.
All over his ass. Just cents everywhere. Volkov hates it, but he does it because, again, he is a broke son of a bitch. Joe, get us going on this one.
I feel like that might be real life here. I don't know. It's so degrading to a legend.
It is.
It has to be real life. Like, he had to be broke, and he was just like, Vince, get me on TV and give me money, and I don't care if you humiliate me. One of those deals.
And so Vince decided to completely humiliate him for the money.
Yeah. Well, at least he didn't put him in the Bastion Booger outfit.
Yeah, he could have done that.
That's a special kind of hell for extremely overweight people there.
Wrasslin Raw's favorite wrestler.
Bastion Booger.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Just making sure we're on the same page. Making sure we weren't talking about like Crush or Tatanka or anything. That's all. Friar Ferguson.
Related.
His distant cousin. See, Friar Ferguson would have probably been Ferguson. Probably like Southern English. So I would think that Bastion Booger would probably be like the Eastern European cousin, maybe.
Have you guys heard of the Friars Club roasts that they do? Like, comedians.
Yeah.
They should do WWE should do roasts. The first one could be on Friar Ferguson.
Oh my God. There's not much to roast there. There's like three weeks.
Okay, Friar Ferguson / Bastion Booger.
A little bit more to talk about.
Yeah. Well, then that opens it up to Bastion Booger heard somebody say roast, and he said, sign me the fuck up.
Is he even still alive?
Mike Smith. I'm pretty sure
Something
he is.
tells me, really?
I thought so, because whenever we were doing our text discussion about all of this, I'm pretty sure.
Nah, 2010. 2010.
Okay. Well, that sucks.
There's no way. 53 years old. 53. He made it to 53. I can't believe it.
It's a surprise he survived.
Eating all that Domino's pizza.
The Dominos. Oh my gosh. We'll get to Domino's later here, folks. That's kind of at the moment it's an inside joke, but we'll get to that later. So also in this episode of Raw, in a dumpster somewhere, Duke the Dumpster Drozy is taking a nap. He wakes up briefly to look at the camera and he says, there's a lot of cleaning up to do in the WWF, and he's ready to show up and get to work.
Something tells me this was real life as well. I think he actually was sleeping in a dumpster.
That shot of him, oh, you woke me up. Because he just has trash all over him. Well, I guess I had to get up anyway. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So the Earthquake defeating Yokozuna in the sumo match, this is Earthquake's last Raw match. He would be injured during a match with Yoko at a house show 2 days before this taped episode aired. So this was it. Our last taste of the Earthquake in the WWF was him beating Yokozuna, and I can't think of a better way. I mean, it sucks. It would have been great for him to stick around, but thank Friar Ferguson this happened. Thank Friar Ferguson for Earthquake, and thank Friar Ferguson for the defeat of Yokozuna in a sumo match.
Yeah, but then Yokozuna almost killed him.
That's true. In a house show.
Yeah. Not cool. But yes, thank you, Friar Ferguson.
We didn't get to see it, though. We got to see this.
Right.
So that's what kind of puts it up there. And
we also got to see Duke the Dumpster's bed.
The Dumpster. Duke the Dumpster of Dumpster.
It was like an episode of Cribs.
This is where I hang my banana peels. It's time to clean it up. All right, so we're going to move it along to Raw 64, May 23rd. As far as matches go, Duke the Dumpster debuts in-ring action, defeating Barry Horowitz. You know that things are getting real when they throw Barry Horowitz in there for somebody. Something else that's notable, the final match of the night is Nikolai Volkov, but what's more interesting about this is that he defeats a very young, possibly underage Matt Hardy by submission. How about that, guys? We've got Matt Hardy of the Hardy Boys showing up, and what did we figure out he probably was at this point, 16?
I think Matt was of age. I think it was Jeff that was underage.
Why they used the fake name.
Yeah.
Later on. Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 Raws after this, I think.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see them this early, May 94. And from what I've heard, something interesting about them is at this time, like they were making their own ring gear. Like they were making their own gear, like for the first few years they were in WWF.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I don't think that's something that's very common. I think they have like a seamstress on staff that makes everybody's gear. So
it's interesting because seeing some of the costumes, I would have thought they were very much homemade.
Max Moon.
Yeah.
Cyrax.
Bash and Booger.
Yeah, that was homemade.
Could you imagine being his tailor, making that outfit?
Give me more seatbelts. I swear that's what it looks like. Somebody just sewed a bunch of seatbelts onto a pair of tights.
Yeah, it's terrible.
All right, so we're gonna move it on to Raw 65 here. First match of the night: Crush versus Tatanka, ending in a double countout, and this is a King of the Ring qualifier. I mean, we don't need to talk about it or anything, but Jesus,
yeah, stinker.
We get some action at King's Court though. The guest of the King's Court for this go around is Bret Hart, but Lawler gets some good insults in on the Hart family before bringing out Bret Hart. This and going forward, maybe not even going forward, just all around. Like I kind of got tired of King's Court a little bit. I'm not bitching about it per se, but I would have liked to have seen maybe like every other week or something. That it started to take up a little bit too much time when there should have been wrestling going on. One really great thing about it is Lawler insulting the Hart family. It never gets old. I could listen to him putting down the Hart family all fucking day long. It's great. Like, he's a poet. The man's a poet when it comes to insulting the Hart family. Maybe not anything else, but the Hart family specifically. But so after some back and forth, Lawler brings out his quote-unquote real guests, Shawn Michaels and Diesel. They talk. Diesel sucker punches Hart, gives him the jackknife powerbomb, and then Diesel, Shawn Michaels, and Jerry Lawler triple team Bret Hart until officials come out to break it up. By God, the carnage. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to say about this particular King's Court?
It's just great heel behavior here from all three. Definitely Bret Hart elevating Diesel because, I don't know, Diesel to me at this time just wasn't anything that great. But I think Bret Hart elevated it a little bit.
All right. So after that happens, Todd Pettengill. We've got like 3 of our favorites all in one here. Todd Pettengill announces that Crush and Tatanka will have a rematch next week in a lumberjack match to determine who will advance to King of the Ring. 4 great things: Todd Pettengill, Crush, Tatanka, lumberjack match. How can you go wrong with any of that? Yeah, another Crush Tatanka match. And Jerry Lawler announces that his guest on King's Court next week will be, quote, someone that is from Scotland who wears a dress and a shirt that says Hot Rod. Wonder who that's going to be. Ryan, you got any ideas on that?
I don't know. I mean, is there any former wrestler that was Scottish and wore a kilt? Yeah, I don't know.
Now, the Hot Rod thing is what's throwing it for me. I really don't know.
Hot Rod? So they're going to have like a car in the middle of the ring?
They're going to just drive it in, maybe?
I guess we'll see next week.
I didn't think the entryway was wide enough for that, but all right. And with that rounds out May 1994. Joe, do you have any contemporary news for May of 1994 that might be of interest to us?
Yes, I do. The April 18th Raw, we already talked about that one in the last episode, but this was the Raw that Bret Hart faced Quang because Quang deserved that title shot. That Raw received it's set a record with a 3.7 rating, so that was the highest rated Raw since Raw debuted. And we also talked about Tonya Harding being offered $2 million to wrestle in Japan, but the real amount was somewhere around $300,000, and she did not accept the deal. There is another lawsuit happening against the WWF, and it is from a jobber that we have not mentioned, but we have mentioned him, Chuck Austin, who suffered a broken neck and became paralyzed from the neck down in 1990 in a match against the Rockers. Chuck Austin was rewarded a $26 million judgment. Yeah, Marty.
Marty.
Cost the company $26 million and a man the use of his limbs.
Yes. He deserves all of the shit we give him.
Jacques and Pierre are Wrasslin Raw's favorite tag team, the Quebecers. It is reported that Jacques Rougeau he's done by the end of June here. And this is a combination of not enough time at home with his family and just not making enough money. So he is quitting. He's quitting.
They were paying him?
So that could probably explain the end of the run for the Quebecers.
Good thing for him quitting.
Good thing for him and good thing for us. And that's all for May.
Excellent. That's the kind of news update I like to hear. So we'll move it to June. June of 1994 starts with dun 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 Raw 66 on June 6th.
Come on, what's that first match? Come on, give it to us.
Tatanka defeats Crush in a King of the Ring qualifier match, lumberjack style. Satan's work on the screen right there. And yes, I'm pretty sure you guys were right. The final match of this Raw, Razor Ramon defeats Keith Davis. But Joe, you're saying that Keith Davis was a pseudonym.
Yeah. Yeah, the fake name for Jeff Hardy. Yes, a very underage Jeff Hardy. Pretty sure he was like 17 at
12.
Yeah. He was 12. Yes, he was the same age as the number of our subscribers, 12.
Yes, prepubescent, also like our subscribers.
You skipped Bam Bam Bigelow defeating the Pope.
Oh.
John Paul, yeah. He wanted revenge for the whole Friar Ferguson debacle. They determined that the best person to take on the Pope would be Bam Bam Bigelow.
Set him on fire.
But yeah, so getting into the promos and interviews. Randy Savage tells everyone not to bother with seeing the Flintstones movie. And then him and Vince plug the King of the Ring hotline. 1-900 eat shit. Don't go see the Flintstones.
Should Randy Savage go see the Flintstones movie again?
Get your parents' permission.
That was a really shitty movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there wasn't much great about it, really. But still, just the fact that it got any kind of talk on Raw at all is just great.
Yeah.
So we also have footage from the D-Day Challenge in New York City where the WWF Superstars defeated a team of Marine/Navy/Coast Guard members in a game of tug of war. Ryan, you had a question about this here.
I thought it was pretty interesting that they decided to just have the WWF stars just basically manhandle and humiliate all of these Marines and Navy. Like, I thought for sure it was going to be like a sympathy win that they give to them. But no, they decided to say the WWF stronger than the armed forces.
The only thing that it was missing was just a giant pit of pig shit they could have dragged them into to cap off the win. So next up is King's Court, and Jerry Lawler discusses his expectations for King of the Ring, and then he brings out a super skinny, like disgustingly, like I kind of think the kid was malformed maybe, Roddy Piper impersonator. He mocks everything about Piper to the Imposter. And the Imposter tries to back out of the match as though he's Roddy Piper, acting like he's all afraid of Jerry Lawler. And then the King makes the impersonator kiss the King's feet and then crawl out of the ring. I couldn't get past how fucked up this kid looked.
How skinny he was. Yeah, there's definitely something weird there.
Skeletor.
I'm going to feel bad if he had something wrong with him.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't look healthy.
No, something weird there. Like he didn't look that young either, but Gorilla Monsoon kept referring to him as the youngster, like as if he was, a 12-year-old kid. But I mean, he looked like he was in his late 20s at least.
When you're that malnutrition.
I mean, this was great though. This kid was like hilarious.
He did a good job.
Yeah, it was just so bad. It was funny.
He did do a pretty good job of impersonating the voice, if nothing else. It's just like his chest was caving in, man. Like his shoulders were like shriveling around. Anyway, later on here, the $1 Million Man joins Vince and the Macho Man Randy Savage at ringside, and he says that he has the Undertaker and will bring him to Superstars. The Undertaker will be the property of the $1 Million Man, and everyone else can rest in peace. This, of course, gets a rebuttal from Paul Bearer in the cemetery, saying that it's true that the Undertaker's trail has gone cold, but he doesn't think that the $1 Million Man will be bringing the Undertaker to the ring next week. So, Ryan, did you have a comment on this turn of events?
It's worth noting for the fact that we're going to see this for quite a few weeks leading up. We're going to see the $1 Million Man tease for a little bit about the Undertaker. Then we're going to actually see some $1 Million Man endorsed Undertaker matches, along with the Paul Bearer claiming that that's not the real Undertaker. So then we're going to have a little bit of a controversy about, is this the real Undertaker or not? So this is the beginning of that. So I just figured we should probably mention it.
Yeah, this is some shit that's going to go on for the next 3 months. So buckle up. Final note on Raw 66 of June 6th. It was filmed at the Struthers Fieldhouse in Youngstown, Ohio. For maybe we have a subscriber that's in Western Pennsylvania or that grew up with us, and Youngstown, Ohio was just a hop, skip, and a jump across the border. Just kind of a cool little factoid for those of us who were kids and fans. This was practically filmed in our backyard. There really isn't anything of this, an arena or anything like that of this size in Newcastle where we're from, but it would not have been that hard to get over to Youngstown to watch this if we had been lucky enough to go and see Tatanka defeat Crush in person. And so, like we've talked about before, Raw 666 was the go-home Raw. This is leading into King of the Ring. We didn't have a whole lot exciting happening besides Tatanka defeating Crush in a King of the Ring qualifier. But next up, King of the Ring 1994, airing on June 19th, coming out of Baltimore, Maryland, the home of Art Donovan. As far as the matches go, there's a little bit going on. This wasn't as good of a King of the Ring as 93 was, unfortunately. We don't have a Mr. Perfect Bret Hart match coming out of this one, or a WrestleMania 10 from earlier in the year with 2 match of the year contenders there. But we do get a couple interesting little tidbits going on in the ring here. First up, Diesel defeats Bret Hart by disqualification in a WWF Championship title match, meaning Bret Hart retains the championship even though he loses. This will go on to start part of a bigger storyline. This is maybe a more subtler plot point in that larger storyline, but Joe, get us talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember a lot about this match really, but I do know that Bret Hart, like I said earlier, Bret Hart's just elevating Diesel because Diesel's just not impressing me right now. But, you know, obviously he goes on this quick run, so he obviously impressed the big man, the big Vinnie Mac.
To me, it's crazy. We have the WWF Championship match, and it's what, 5th away from the last match?
Yeah, yeah, it's a mid-card match. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the WWF Championship match as a mid-card match at King of the Ring, and it ends in a disqualification. It's not even a clean match. So, I mean, that part of it's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, agreed on all parts. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird.
Refresh my memory. Is Diesel the IC champ here? Is it title for title?
No.
He is the champ.
He's the champ, but it's not
title for title. Right.
Just seems forced. I wonder what caused this.
Yeah, was there an injury or something that made this come about?
Yeah, I think maybe just trying to build up Diesel, really.
The outcome of this match?
No, just the match in general. Like there was
the match in general. Okay.
But they didn't have enough confidence in it to make it the headliner, which it should be.
I always thought it was just a vehicle for bringing in Jim Neidhart. And okay, so for those of you out there listening, this is the match. The whole reason that Diesel defeats Bret Hart by disqualification is that supposedly, and this is part of that storyline that I mentioned earlier, Jim the Anvil Neidhart makes a stunning surprise appearance, kind of gives Bret Hart the assist, giving Diesel the win, but allowing Bret Hart to keep the belt. I can see what you guys are saying as far as giving Diesel a little bit of a bump, showing a little bit of confidence in him. But I always thought they were just kind of using it as like a throwaway match just to give the Anvil a reason to show up and to help that storyline.
Yeah, that or just putting more focus on the King of the Ring matches. So they've decided, well, let's just put the IC champ against the heavyweight champ.
But the final match is Roddy Piper versus Jerry Lawler.
The new generation.
Yeah, new gen.
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, boys, because we can't fail to mention the WWF Tag Team Championship match. The Head Shrinkers defeat Crush and Yokozuna to
Talk
retain.
About random.
Yeah, right. I mean, they were kind of Fuji guys, but Crush really hasn't been with Fuji all that much.
They're both Hawaiians.
Shh. No, Yokozuna's Japanese.
I'm sorry. That's
He's
right.
He's a sumo wrestler.
That's right, brother.
I still can't figure out if that whole Hawaiian accent from Crush was just like a complete put on or if he talked like that in real life or some mixture of both.
I think there's something going on there, brother.
Yeah, brother. Moving on to the King of the Ring match, which, like Ryan mentioned earlier, so this pay-per-view is the King of the Ring, and the King of the Ring final isn't even the final match of the night. Owen Hart defeats Razor Ramon to become King of the Ring, starting the King of Hearts storyline / gimmick / age of Owen. Owen Hart really coming into his own here. I'm a huge fan of Owen Hart, as I've said many times before, and this was great to watch, especially the coronation ceremony afterwards. Joe, do you want to kind of give us a teensy bit of a breakdown on what happened in this match with certain people?
So you mentioned earlier that Anvil came in to help Bret, and then we see this, he's stabbing Bret in the back here during this match, helping Owen. I agree with you. I really like Owen right now in this King of Hearts thing, but I feel like Anvil is just kind of thrown in there. I kind of wish he wasn't there. I get why they have him there, but I think Owen would have been great on his own without that.
Yeah, that was a little weak.
Yeah, Anvil just sucks. I mean,
yeah.
And he looks like he's gotten fatter and sloppier.
But this being such a pivotal point in the Bret Hart, Owen Hart feud, I got to love the match and just him coming away the King of Hearts, because it does, as you both mentioned, just kind of lead itself into such a great heel character for him. So I loved it.
Yeah, agreed on all points. Good stuff here. I mean, it wasn't the best match as far as like in-ring work goes. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't really noteworthy. More noteworthy for the storyline progress that we're getting out of it. So
yeah, we had both of them in 3 matches during this pay-per-view, Owen and Razor.
Yeah, they both went the whole way through all the semis or quarters and semis. They had to have been tired as hell. Yoko wouldn't have been able to do that.
No.
He'd have fallen over halfway down the ramp for the third one.
Yeah, he wrestled 2 great matches on a pay-per-view 2 months before this.
And he was never the same after.
Now he's teaming with Crush.
Yeah. The final match of the night, I can't even say out of nowhere because they built up to it, but like Roddy Piper defeats Jerry Lawler, headlining King of the Ring here, folks.
New generation.
Yeah. Like, I think I might have heard in one of the other one of the better podcasts out there, probably Pritchard, maybe JR. But this was basically just a Roddy needs a paycheck kind of thing, wasn't it?
I don't know. What I do know is the whole thing with the helping the children stuff, the children hospital or whatever. I guess WWF at this time was trying to do a lot more charity work because of the whole steroid trial.
Multiple lawsuits.
Yeah, so like that was part of it, but I don't know if that had anything to do with why it was Roddy Piper.
This was also the pay-per-view where Vince McMahon was injured, right?
Yes.
And that's why he had like nothing to do with this.
Yeah, he was having like shoulder surgery or something.
And this was kind of a lot of Pritchard had to do with a lot of this episode. It was like his first in control thing, if I remember correctly, him talking about it, and it just kind of went to shit. I mean, this Roddy Piper Lawler thing is just kind of highlights that, because the whole match, we get promo after promo of them talking about, next gen, the new generation, and they keep on showing all their new stars, yet come the end of the match, they're not comfortable to have anyone from the next gen close out the show. We're going to bring back an old time retired vet, Roddy Piper, out of Hollywood and put him up against Jerry Lawler. And that's going to be the final show of the night.
Yeah. The whole thing is just extremely weird. It is worth noting that this is Roddy Piper's first pay-per-view appearance since WrestleMania 8, and also the first time since WrestleMania 1 that Piper is led to the ring by real bagpipe players playing. I liked that, personally. I mean, the rest of it was kind of crappy, but I liked the whole bagpipe entrance thing. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, and he was a referee in WrestleMania 10, right? The title match. Yeah.
And let's not forget to mention, he was probably in the best shape of his life. This was a very thin, but
he did look good.
Roddy Piper. Yeah. I mean, he was in shape at this point.
Before we get to the biggest aspect of this, just one quick thing here. The crowning coronation ceremony for Owen Hart, Jack Tunney, the president of the WWF, Jack Tunney, and Todd Pettengill host. Owen Hart refuses to let Jack Tunney present him with the cape and crown and demands that Jim the Anvil Neidhart do it instead. There, before Friar Ferguson and everyone, Owen labels himself the King of Hearts, and on the microphone there, Randy Savage wonders out loud if Neidhart and Owen had set Bret up, having Neidhart ensure that Bret kept the title. Remember that match earlier with Diesel? Diesel won by DQ, but Bret got to keep the belt. Having Neidhart ensure that Bret kept the title so Owen could take it from him. And then we get one of those ominous quotes from Savage, "Time will tell. Time will tell." Now that we've got all of this other stuff out of the way, are you guys ready?
No, I'm ready.
I know you're ready, Ryan. I know it. So Art fucking Donovan. Before we get into it, I just want to give everybody a background on him so everybody knows who he is and what we're talking about. So Art fucking Donovan started in the NFL as a defensive tackle in 1950 for the Baltimore Colts. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time World Championship holder in 1958, 1959. And he was named to the NFL 50th anniversary all-time team and inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 1968. At this point in time in history, June 1994, he was the host of a popular local radio show in Baltimore doing sports talk. And I do believe that's the one and only reason they got him on here for this, is because he was a local figure in Baltimore where they were holding this. So that little bit of background out of the way. Art fucking Donovan. Ryan, go.
My God. I have never heard someone be so terrible of an announcer in my life. They clearly did not even no one had a single conversation with this man before they decided to let him just sit next to him and talk about this match for the entire pay-per-view for 3 hours.
Entire pay-per-view.
Yeah. Absurd. about halfway through, Macho Man and Gorilla get to a point where they realize they have to just ignore Donovan. He's just making these stupid comments. Oh, you guys actually enjoyed this? Or look at that guy. How's he taking a beating like this? And he rambles on. And there's a point where Macho Man finally, I can't exactly remember the comment that he makes, but Macho Man just looks at him and then looks away and continues to talk to Gorilla like he's not there. And that is the end of pretty much acknowledging anything Donovan says.
Yeah, it definitely got to the point where he's just a senile, mumbling man. They're just completely ignoring his questions at the end, particularly the last match. They completely ignored him on the last match. But this is absolutely worth watching just for the comedy aspect. But
yeah,
it's kind of a shame for it because it wasn't a terrible pay-per-view. I mean, the main event was terrible and Art Donovan was terrible.
The national anthem was pretty bad too.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. The guy from Skinner, right?
No, it was, the guy from, Blackfoot.
Yeah,
Train. Well, he's in Skinner now. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, okay.
Ricky Medlock.
Yes. Yeah. Pritchard was a big fan, apparently.
That was bad, but I gotta say, it wasn't as bad as the guy that did the Stars and Spangled Banner. It's worth going back and watching that Stars and Stripes episode, the Lex Express bullshit, just to hear how terrible this guy singing the anthem was. And Bobby Heenan actually made a comment too, like, I think he needs to get some voice lessons.
Oh,
but yeah, back to Art Donovan. I just what a mistake. Just pull the plug. It's okay to just pull the plug on it. Give him his money and tell him to go home. Wow, I can't believe they let him go on for this entire 3-hour show.
At some point, they should have just, like when they were doing some promo or backstage scene, said, you know what, Donovan, this probably isn't working out. Here's your bag of cash. Just please exit out the back door.
So I dug up a couple Donovan quotes here from the evening just to further illustrate everything. I'm going to try to do, it's not going to do it any justice, but I'm going to try to do my best Art Donovan voice for this. How much does this guy weigh? 1, 2, 3 kid is in the final phase. How much does this guy weigh? This Tatanka. And this is at the point where Monsoon and Savage are ignoring him. So he says, how much does this Tatanka weigh? Again, because he's being ignored. In reference to the head shrinkers. Are these guys from the Samoan Islands or what? How much does this 1, 2, 3 kid weigh? Yokozuna enters. Whoa! How much does this guy weigh?
There seems to be a pattern. He was very obsessed with people's weight.
Randy, did you ever behave like that in the ring? The announcer in the ring says tag team championship, to which Art Donovan replies, championship? This is it then, huh? Referencing Jerry Lawler after Owen Hart was coronated as king. Now, why is that guy coming out with a crown on? And that's what I have. I just thought I'd throw that in there for you.
Horrible.
The genius that is Art fucking Donovan.
Hell of a football player, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got the stats to show that he was something great back in the 50s.
Clearly, he had CTE in 1994.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've wrung as much as we can out of King of the Ring 94. But in all seriousness, folks out there listening, do go and watch this just for Art Donovan. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like how people enjoy bad movies nowadays, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space and all that kind of thing. This is the wrestling version of that. If you go and watch this, you're not going to be disappointed.
Or like when you're driving by a horrific wreck and you just have to look.
Yeah, it's like the Sharknado of pay-per-views.
How much does this guy weigh?
You guys actually enjoy doing this?
All of those pauses that I put in there were intentional, by the way.
And the silence and us not reacting was intentional as well.
The same, that same silence happened at the announce table in the middle of a fucking pay-per-view. My God. All right, so we're going to move on from King of the Ring 94 to Raw 67, June 20th. As far as matches go, not too much going on here. Yokozuna is solidly in the mid-card here. Typhoon comes in and defeats the Black Phantom, who we've mentioned before in previous episodes of Raw so far, is Gangrel. And the final match of the evening is the Heavenly Bodies defeating a jobber team of Jim Powers and Russ Greenberg. I enjoy watching the Heavenly Bodies. It's good shit, folks. But in the land of promos and interviews, we get another episode of King's Court here. Jerry Lawler comes out and talks trash on Roddy Piper after Piper beat Lawler at King of the Ring. And then he brings out his guest, Duke the Dumpster Droese. Lawler shit talks him. Duke attempts to keep up. He really doesn't, because he wasn't very good at any of this. Lawler then shit talks Duke so hard that Duke can't get a word in at all. Duke calls Lawler a stinking piece of garbage and walks out. Lawler follows him, jumps him, and then beats him with his own trash can. Talk about irony there. This would inspire the apology that comes up next week from Jerry Lawler. Aside from this, there's really nothing going on in this episode of Raw. There are a couple things to note here that are kind of tangential to it. This is Typhoon's return to the WWF in his match here tonight after the Shockmaster debacle in WCW. Just for anybody, we're not going to get into it here, but anybody, please just go and YouTube it. Just type in WCW Shockmaster. It's great. In other noteworthy thing here, in the Heavenly Bodies match, closing out this Raw, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey breaks his pelvis when he moonsaults, Russ Greenberg, yeah. He moonsaults Russ Greenberg. Greenberg, being a total unprofessional, is out of position to more or less catch Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. I mean, he's not literally catching him, but he needs to be in a certain position to kind of help distribute the weight whenever Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey lands, but he's out of position. He breaks his fucking pelvis. Poor Gigolo Jimmy. No plowing broads for him after this for at least 6 weeks till he gets the cast off.
6 to 8.
Yeah, this is the move, that moonsault that Del Rey uses to pin Greenberg and win the match to take it home after that. What I can only imagine was a very painful fucking injury. My God.
In Greenberg's defense, he was probably very distracted by Gigolo's terrible teeth as he was flying down onto him.
I don't know what you're talking about. The man's a professional sex worker. He's a gigolo. He can't be. There's nothing about him that, I mean, I don't know for a fact, as I am not of that persuasion, but I'd imagine that since he apparently earns a living in the sex trade, that, people find him very attractive. All right, we're gonna keep it moving here, but yeah, that just sucks because I like the Heavenly Bodies. Joking aside, they're one of the better tag teams we've got going on here. I've mentioned it many times before. I mean, come on, Smoking Guns? No, you don't want to see Smoking Guns. Anyway, moving on to Raw 68, airing on June 27th, and this particular episode of Raw holds a special place in my heart, and I'm sure you guys' heart too. We recorded our first ever dry test run for this particular episode of Raw. Whenever we were figuring out how we were going to do the format of our podcast and how we were going to, approach talking about episodes of Raw, this is the Raw that we picked. Ryan, do you want to tell everybody why we picked this particular Raw?
We picked this particular Raw because, well, nothing really happens. It's a bunch of jobber matches outside of the very first match, which is disappointing, Mabel defeating Bam Bam Bigelow. So we wanted to try and pick a match that we knew had nothing too great going on, just to kind of see how things would work out with us trying to fill an hour with a Raw that maybe wasn't the best.
I think it went well. Obviously, we all think it went well since we're here talking to our 5 or 6 subscribers that are out there. But the bigger, more important aspect here, well, actually, there's a couple bigger, more important aspects. This is where we really learned to love Mike Moraldo.
Yes.
I mean, jobber, or I should say enhancement talent, Hall of Fame inductee right there.
And I guess just to kind of tell our audience moving forward, we will be doing a jobber of the week in our normal episodes. And we did it in our dry run. And I picked Mike Moraldo because in this episode, he stole the show as far as jobbers go. He was phenomenal in the ring, very believable, even though he was up against the much hated Quang. He somehow made Quang look serviceable in the ring. So way to go, Mike Moraldo.
Might have been the other way around, maybe.
No, we've seen in a couple other matches, Mike Moraldo has his shit together.
Especially when Quang is choking on his fucking poison red mist pill or whatever the hell that is that he spits.
Yeah.
The Tajiri.
Yeah.
Didn't Tajiri used to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, yes, he did. Quang uses red. Quang used red spit, I do believe, and Tajiri used green.
Yes.
But eventually, whenever we get to 75 subscribers, which we're pegging that as a 3-year goal there, we're going to start a Patreon. And at the elite tier of Patreon patrons, if you pay us $100 a month, you are going to get Raw 68, the dry run recording, unedited, every week for the entirety of your subscription. You're not going to get anything else. There's not going to be any other perks, but every week you will get the same MP3 file of our unedited dry run for eternity.
Completely raw.
Yeah. Uncut. So just keep that in mind. Keep your eye out for our Patreon.
Maybe draw a winner for Duke the Dumpster t-shirt.
They made t-shirts for him?
I don't know.
We can go find a t-shirt out of a dumpster and mail that out.
But whenever you go reach into that dumpster, you're going to see a man come out and say, "Hey,
sprawled leisurely.
Yeah, welcome to my home."
You just woke
There's a lot
me
of
up.
cleaning up to do.
Yeah. This place is a mess. Excuse me. All right. So we're going to move it on here. The opening promos here. There's a promo from Duke the Dumpster. It's not good. Lawler gets a promo immediately after shit talking the dumpster. And then, Joe, you can give us the background on this one, but Lawler has to apologize for hitting Drosy with Drosy's own trash can last week.
Yeah, it got a little too violent. So like we noted in the past here, Linda McMahon took over the show here not too long before this because Vince is dealing with the steroid trial stuff. So she was cracking down and Lawler had to do a legit apology promo. So yeah, PG, just like they are now. It was definitely PG in 94.
And I think it's worth noting here that the promo that Duke cuts is pretty poor as expected. But the promo and apology that Jerry Lawler puts out is pretty great.
Yeah.
He is just really trying to force out the words apology. And as expected, Lawler really delivers here.
Yes, agreed on all points there. Moving on to some other stuff that happened in this episode of Raw, we've got, just as an update on the whole $1 Million Man Undertaker storyline, the $1 Million Man has supposedly found the Undertaker, and some clips from Superstars highlight this. We've got an episode of King's Court here within this Raw. Lawler talks about the Hart Foundation, just generally. Guests Jim Neidhart and Owen Hart are brought out to shit talk Bret Hart. So that was entertaining to listen to. $1 Million Man officially announces that $1 Million Man has purchased the services of Bam Bam Bigelow and that Lex Luger is next. And this is pivotal. This is a very important point in the timeline here because now, I mean, we hinted at it in the last episode of Raw so far, but now we're gearing up. We are moving ever more quickly towards the single greatest heel turn in the history of wrestling. I'll leave it at that for now because we're going to get to it. Notable happenings for this particular episode of Raw. This is Luna Vachon's final appearance as Bam Bam Bigelow's valet. Sad to say. After this, Luna sells Bam Bam's contract to the $1 Million Man, and she sets her sights on the WWF Women's Champion, Alundra Blaze, even though she won't wrestle her for it at all. Yeah, so June's over. Joe, what do you got for us for June news in the wrestling world?
Yeah, so we mentioned $1 Million Man has a fake Undertaker now. We know as Brian Lee. And Brian Lee and Mark Calloway, the Undertaker, had actually been friends for years at this point. And Brian Lee was actually in the Undertaker's wedding party. So they were very close friends, which I didn't know. Hulk Hogan debuted on WCW around this time. So that's noteworthy. King of the Ring, reader poll, 20% thumbs up, 56% thumbs down, and the rest were in the middle. Best match was voted 1-2-3 Kid versus Owen Hart. Worst match was IRS versus Mabel.
That's unfortunate.
And I got to point out that there were two huge blunders on this King of the Ring pay-per-view. Obviously, we talked about Art Donovan being number one. Number two was Maryland Governor William Schaefer saying that his favorite wrestler is Hulk Hogan on the show during an interview. That wasn't too good at that time.
Not very timely.
Yeah, not very good. And that's all for June.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Joe. We're going to move it to July, and Raw 69 on July 4th is going to kick off July, and there's nothing really going on here at all.
For the birth of America.
Yeah, I know, right? They got a little bit of something going on here. That we got the Raw in-ring action debut of the fake Undertaker. He defeats Mike Bell, of all people. Survived that, thankfully. Some additional notes on the fake Undertaker, Brian Lee. Joe, did you mention that he's the real-life cousin of Mark Calloway?
I did not.
In real life, he's the cousin of the Undertaker.
They look nothing alike, though.
No, there's significant difference between the two of them. Brian Lee is the first ever Smoky Mountain Wrestling champ, and Brian Lee is also the first wrestler ever to be managed by Tammy Lynn Sitch. Sonny, for those out there wondering. Little bit of trivia there. So the only real thing of any major note here is in King's Court, Lawler brings out his guest, the 1-2-3 Kid, and he mocks him, of course. This is when we get told about the Kid having a championship match with Bret Hart next week on Raw. The Kid is, of course, very polite and respectful to Mr. Hart. He keeps on calling him Mr. Hart, while Lawler's like shit-talking Hart the whole time. It's actually kind of funny. The Kid says he won't play dirty, but he will only give 110% to the match. So, yeah. This is it. There's really not much going on otherwise here. We're going to move it to Raw 70, airing on July 11th. And here we go. This fucking match. We kick off Raw 70 with Bret Hart defeating the 1-2-3 Kid to retain the WWF Championship belt. And guys, this is absolutely match of the year candidate here. This was a phenomenal match. Ryan, do you want to start the conversation on this one?
Yeah, I was shocked at this match because you're leading into, it's just the beginning of Raw. You're kind of these matches typically aren't that great. You have like a Bam Bam versus Mabel type matches usually to kick off a Raw, but it starts off with, as you just mentioned, one of the best matches of '94. This thing is just a riot to watch, and it takes, it's like a third or almost a half of the entire Raw is dedicated to this match, and both of them are just, wrestling their hearts out there. The 1-2-3 Kid is really starting to rise in the audience eyes, and Bret Hart has no problem putting him over in this match. I mean, obviously, Hart's going to come away victorious, but he does such a great job of making the audience and really everyone just believe that the 1-2-3 Kid has his shit together and was actually able to put together a very good match against Bret Hart and actually fight him for the belt a little bit. I loved this match, and surely it's one of our finals for 94.
Yeah, I love this match, and Jim Ross on commentary made it great as well. There's some pretty cool interviews on YouTube about with 1-2-3 Kid, Sean Waltman, X-Pac, whatever you want to call him. He talks about this match quite a bit. And this year, I thought it was pretty cool. He posted on his Twitter, like, "Thank you, Bret, for doing this for me, 15 years ago, however long ago this was, I forget." But
25.
Every anniversary he posts on his Twitter, like, I owe everything to Bret Hart for doing this for me. Like, so it's just pretty cool to see that.
Because I think in a lot of people's eyes, this was his moment. It started the rise under Ramon and stuff, but the fact that he was able to put together such a great match with Bret Hart just really put his trajectory towards the sky.
Yeah. I have a feeling Bret probably told him before, like, "Hey, we're going to go 3 segments. I'm going to work." Bret basically worked heel in this match.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. So yeah, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Agreed on all points. This was really just the best of all worlds here. Both wrestlers extremely efficient and technical, just good workers. Storytelling too. There's a couple spots towards the beginning, maybe about 5 minutes into the start of the match, where you can see on Bret's face. Bret was never really much of a super dramatic seller of things, but he starts to get this look in his eye. 1-2-3 Kid catches him with an insecurity real quick, and Bret kind of just stops and like holds his lip and just kind of looks at it and gives the kid a look. And it's really subtle, but it's really there, and it's really entertaining because you start to see behind Bret's eyes, you start to see this reevaluation of the situation. And we'll get to later on in the Raw, we get backstage interview with Bret Hart. And he did a really good job of kind of summarizing the story of this match, in that he really gets into talking it up. And he says that he thought that he would be the one teaching the 1-2-3 Kid a lesson, but now he's learned that he's just lucky to have survived it. And I think it's just phenomenal, top to bottom, start to finish. All of it. Fantastic match. And I'm going to remind our listeners that we're not going to get too into detail with it here, because we're only halfway through 1994 in our Raw So Far segments here. So we're going to be switching to our normal format, and we might have more match of the year contenders that we get to here. So at the end of 1994, we're going to have a special episode where we go and talk about just the matches that are match of the year contenders. So we'll do a more detailed breakdown of this match later on then. But for anybody out there listening to this, Raw 70, July 11th, 1994, first match on the card. Amazing
Go
match.
Watch it.
Yes. Can't say that enough. So in the rest of the matches of this particular...
And then it's followed up with what?
Crush defeats Matt Hardy.
Keep it going.
But there's a silver lining. There's a silver lining here. What's notable about this is that this is Crush's last Raw match for the foreseeable future. This isn't like completely it, but for the foreseeable future. Crush remains with the company through August, and his final match in this particular WWF run is the Sunday Night Slam before SummerSlam 94, where he loses to Lex Luger. He does eventually return to the WWF at the 95 Royal Rumble, but not before being arrested and jailed for purchasing steroids and an illegal handgun in Hawaii, brother.
So you have to know what I have to say about that.
And what's that, Ryan?
Thank Friar Ferguson. Crush is gone. At least for now.
In the pokey. But yeah, so we don't have to say brother again. I mean, we probably will, but, thank Friar Ferguson, brother. Also, as we mentioned before, notable for this episode of Raw, Jim Ross is in for Vince. And Joe, you had, what were you thinking about this? You had something written down here?
Yeah, I think this is his, Vince is still out. He had his surgery before King of the Ring. So this was the first play-by-play that Jim Ross did on Raw. Appeared as a color guy with Vince before, but this is his first play-by-play.
In his natural role.
Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah, and again, thank Friar Ferguson that it was Jim Ross calling that Bret Hart 1-2-3 Kid match. Just so many different factors make that an amazing match. Jim Ross is one of them. Also notable, Matt Hardy making an appearance again
against Crush, ending Crush's career.
Yeah, in when he loses to Crush, he loses to Crush.
He's that good. He could lose, but still end his career.
Yes.
All right. So next up, Raw 71, July 18th. As far as matches go, not really a whole lot going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4 jobber matches. The end match of the night is a jobber match. It's whatever. But in terms of promos and interviews, this particular episode of Raw opens with a clip from Superstars, where Tatanka was on the Heartbreak Hotel, and Tatanka gets pissed off that Lex Luger has sold out to the $1 Million Man. As we've mentioned before, this goes somewhere. This goes to very, lofty heights. But Joe, why don't you give us your opinions on this so far, where we're at so far with this?
Well, for anyone that wants to hear the words "you sold out" 400 times within 45 minutes, go watch Raw, July 18th, 1994.
You sold out. You sold out.
It's just horrible acting. Tatanka is just not. He's
and this entire lead up for this feud is like the worst sitcom storyline there is in the world, where they just don't allow the one character to actually explain what just happened.
Yes.
It's just, no, I saw this happen and now I'm just irate and can't hear anything you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. There are so many scenes during this whole thing where it would have been real fucking easy for Lex Luger to just say, no, none of this has happened. It's all bullshit.
What he should have said is, at least I pay my taxes.
Yeah. I paid the taxes on these ceremonial spangly red, white, and blue trunks. But yeah, just the whole thing was just shoehorned in there. Like, at any point, Lex Luger could have said that this wasn't true.
We can't ignore the fact that Lex Luger is just being pushed way down on the card here. I mean, he's getting in a feud with Tatanka.
Yeah, he's feuding with Tatanka. Let's see where his life is at this point.
I mean, this guy just had 2 title shots on 2 separate pay-per-views, one of them being WrestleMania, and now he's in a feud with Tatanka.
Well, we can't tough talk it too much because, as I've mentioned before, this is laying the groundwork.
Yes.
Single greatest heel turn in the history of wrestling. But speaking of laying the groundwork, we also get a SummerSlam report from Todd Pettengill. He's updating us on the matches that are going to be featured on SummerSlam, and he also announces that Leslie Nielsen has been hired to investigate the mystery of the Undertaker situation. Ryan, your thoughts on Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah, these are so bad. And it's so upsetting because I loved Leslie Nielsen and still do. And Naked Gun, they were just classics. He's playing exactly his character from Naked Gun, but they just don't fit here. They feel very forced and it's ugly.
Yeah, and then the other guy came in later. I forget what his name is. Yeah,
his buddy from Naked Gun. He shows up, I believe, not till the pay-per-view though.
Not OJ. Though.
No.
Yeah, no,
not OJ.
That would have been great, but no. And we do get from Todd Pettengill, we do get a complete history of the fake versus real Undertaker situation. So if anybody needs to bring themselves up to speed on that whole thing, Raw 71 is where you do it. Aside from that, that's pretty much it for Raw 71. So we're going to move it to Raw 72. Match-wise, not a whole lot going on here. Duke Droese headlines it. He defeats Dwayne Gill. Amazing.
There's a lot of cleaning up to do. You got to get trash Dwayne Gill out of there.
He's got to start with Gilbert.
Well, there is the setup though with Luna and Alundra Blaze.
Yeah, there is that. So in the in ring, Jim Ross interviews Alundra Blaze. Blaze has issued an open challenge for the WWF Women's Belt, and Luna Vachon was the first to accept it. Blaze comes out, talks with Jim. She shit talks Luna. Jim talks about the arrival of Bull Nakano to challenge Alundra Blaze, and Blaze puts Nakano over as being a legitimate threat. Luna runs out to take credit for bringing Bull Nakano to America, and Blaze just dismisses her entirely. Ryan, were you excited about this one?
It wasn't, it's worth bringing up for the sole factor that we're actually talking about the women's title on Raw.
Yes.
It seems that's kind of reserved only for pay-per-views where we even acknowledge that a women's title exists. But here we are on a Raw talking about it, so I figured we should mention it.
No, you're right. Good call. I fully support the women's title in this time in 1994. And this is our introduction to the name of Bull Nakano. She'll go on to have a fantastic match with Alundra Blaze at SummerSlam, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But yeah, you're right. It was good to throw that in there. Also, Todd Pettengill reminds us that SummerSlam is a thing and that Leslie Nielsen is still on the case of the Undertakers, in case anybody was wondering. And that's it for July. July is over. Joe, what do you got for news of July 1994?
Well, the steroid trial is underway, so that's very exciting. And the only other item I have is, actually with the steroid trial, back to that real quick. Witnesses expected to testify include the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Big John Studd, and Honky Tonk Man. So those are four guys that have some real life beef with Vince McMahon at that time. So the other item here in July is a little bit of a depressing note. Referee Joey Marella died in a car crash. He was Gorilla Monsoon's adopted son. Not sure how old he was when he died, but Harvey Whippleman was with him in the car and sustained injuries and obviously survived. But yeah, a little bit of a sad note. I was unaware that Gorilla had a son that was a referee and died very young.
Yeah, that is pretty tragic.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. So that's it for July.
All right, we're going to move it to August of 1994, and this is the last month of the last episode of Raw so far. We're going to start August with Raw 73, airing on August 1st. Not too much really going on here again. Of note, we have the second match of the night, Alundra Blaze versus Bull Nakano, ending in a double count out for the WWF Women's Championship. Blaze retains the title because of the double count out. This is the Raw debut of Bull Nakano. And I got to tell you guys, this is where I kind of started to fall in love a little bit. She came out with that crazy fucking Frankenstein hair and the weird Japanese music and just looking like a crazy fucking bag lady. It was kind of cool. I was pretty impressed with it. The match itself wasn't really all that great. Wasn't really worth noting.
Though one thing worth talking about is this is probably the very first WWF Women's Championship match on a Raw, right?
Yeah, pretty sure it is. We haven't had any women's matches on Raw, have we?
Let alone a title match, yeah.
Yeah, because Leilani Kai was at WrestleMania.
We had some mixed tab matches.
Yeah. Was that Luna versus Dink? Is that what it was?
That was at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that was WrestleMania.
Yeah, this is the first Raw women's title match. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. And it couldn't have been with two better wrestlers. Again, like I said, the match itself wasn't all that impressive, but it is certainly history making.
We'll get a better one out of them.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Oh, guys. Pettingill comes in with a SummerSlam report, and he informs us that SummerSlam is going to be brought to us by Domino's Pizza.
Yay.
Just letting you know, because, I mean, we might not talk about it again.
2 pieces of shit right there. Todd Pettingill and Domino's Pizza.
Well, like I said, I mean, you know, it might not get brought up again, so we needed to mention it now. Oh, boy. We have a King's Court here in this episode of Raw with Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund talks about how the wrestling fans have changed and how wrestling isn't the same that it used to be back in the late 70s and 80s whenever he was popular and mattered, and that Bob has begun snapping. And so it's pretty lame overall, but I'll kick it to you guys in just a second, but I wanted to state up front, this, as lame as it is one of the things that I remember most clearly from my childhood. Whenever he sucks now, but whenever I was a kid, I was completely enthralled with this whole Bob Backlund snapping thing, because he was kind of just like a goofy looking wrestler that came in and they talked about his technical prowess. And, you know, I was a kid, so I didn't know what the fuck that really meant. And I thought that they were being serious and, you know, I was keeping it kayfabe. Then he began with the whole snapping and throwing on the crossface chicken wing. And as a kid, I just remember being like, oh my God, Opie's like killing people. What the fuck? And just really, really buying into it. So thank goodness I'm mature enough to not share that now, but I'll kick it to you guys. Joe, why don't you get it started?
Yeah, he looks like Opie. He looks like a very old Opie. He's just old. He's just too old right here. But yeah, I remember too when I was a kid, like I remember the snapping stuff, and it's just, this went on too long, and I get why. I get why they're doing it. I guess I don't know. The idea itself is okay, but Bob Backlund, just come on. And he's been back for like over a year at this point. So it probably would have been better if they had done it earlier with him, or if he had just come in at this point and they do it right away. Those are my thoughts on it.
I think about Bob Backlund and I immediately think of just extremely old school wrestling. Like, you know, me as a little kid going to the local gymnasium on a Sunday or a Saturday morning to watch local professional wrestling type wrestler. That's what I think of when I see Bob Backlund. And I know he has a very long history with the WWF. And I wonder if this was just them kind of throwing him a bone, kind of saying, all right, as a thank you for what you have done for us in the past, here's something to kind of give you a run again, but you're not going to really go anywhere because no one cares anymore.
He did go somewhere eventually, but let's not make ourselves sick right now.
Yeah. This, whenever I think of the name Bob Backlund, I think of two things at the same time: snapping and Bob Backlund for president.
I immediately think of the crossface chicken wing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of snapping for me, but
now I kind of think like what it was like for someone like my dad's age that was watching this, that watched him before, you know, like what they would think about that.
I can just hear your dad. You're right, Bob. The fans have changed.
I am voting for Bob.
Yeah.
You know who I went and watched a lot of these early wrestling matches with was Craig Westrick's dad, Ed Westrick, rest his soul. But that was who, he was a big wrestling fan, and he used to take me and Craig to the Newcastle gymnasium, nice. You know, anytime there was a wrestling match going on there. So fond memories there.
Well, yeah, and speaking of that, this Raw was at the Beagley Center in Youngstown, and I used to go to a lot of matches there with my dad. So yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's awesome, because I didn't know they had Raw at the Beagley Center, because it's a pretty small venue.
Yeah, it's not very big at all.
Well, what better place than Youngstown for Vince McMahon to make his return to Raw? So at the very beginning of this episode of Raw, we've got Vince McMahon, and whenever they introduce Randy Savage. Savage exclaims, "Acquitted," during the intro. So that was pretty fun. Whenever we were watching this in real time, I remember getting a pretty big kick out of that.
Yeah, big win, even though they had to hand out $26 million to Chuck Austin because Marty Jannetty broke his neck. Yeah, if anybody's looking for some good material on the steroid trial, you definitely need to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer because Meltzer just goes crazy on the steroid trial. There's a lot of shit in there.
Even Congress got involved.
Yeah.
I mean, there's detail of everybody on the witness stand, like what they were saying and everything. Like it's pretty detailed. So I personally don't really give a shit, but for anyone that would be interested, any of our 9 subscribers, maybe think about subscribing to the Wrestling Observer and checking that out.
So we're going to move it to Raw 74 here, guys, airing on August 8th. We've got the fake Undertaker in action, and that's kind of about it. Bob Backlund defeats Kevin Kruger by submission. We can only assume that was the cross-faced chicken wing. He must have snapped. And we get this, oh gosh, oh boy, we get this promo of Leslie Nielsen all over the world searching for the Undertaker. Joe, you liked this, didn't you?
I hate it. I hate it. I don't even remember this. I don't know. Do you guys remember?
No.
Back in the day, no.
Like I remember the fake Undertaker, but I totally forgot about the Leslie Nielsen stuff.
I remember the fake Undertaker vividly, but Leslie Nielsen, I didn't remember a shred of it.
And obviously they got to a point where, not to spoil anything, but obviously it dies after SummerSlam. So obviously they got to a point somewhere where they were like, okay, we're going to kill this after we do the match.
Also, we get another SummerSlam report from Todd Pettengill here. Did you guys know that Domino's is going to be delivering during SummerSlam?
Domino's?
Delivering a steaming pile of shit to your front door.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah, just in case anybody wants to know, Domino's is delivering for this. So besides that, not really much anything going on here. We've got in terms of the Lex Luger $1 Million Man storyline, we've got some clips from Heartbreak Hotel on Superstars. Just a really weak way to perpetuate the whole $1 Million Man buying out Luger storyline. And then later on in Raw, we get a backstage vignette of Lex Luger. Maybe you guys can help me out with this one. I don't really remember why he was in the $1 Million Man's locker room yelling at Nikolai Volkov.
Must be a perv.
He was in there arguing with them about something, but then,
yeah,
of course, Tatanka opens the door in an extremely explainable situation. Luger just looks at him like, oh.
Yeah. Oh. It leads to another argument between Tatanka and Lex Luger, and
I think maybe Tatanka said you sold out.
I was just about to suggest that maybe we ought to make a rule that every time Tatanka yells you sold out, we should take a shot.
Take a shot. Yeah, it would be a good drinking game for these couple episodes here.
I would like to be alive by the end of this episode.
Yeah, but you'd need to be that inebriated to make this stuff interesting. Or at least this particular storyline, I should say.
Well, we know what it leads to, though.
Yes. Well, I didn't want to beat it into the ground, even though it is the single greatest heel turn in the history of wrestling.
Let's not ruin it.
Okay. Of note here, this is also the first appearance of IRS as a member of the $1 Million Corporation, which that was just inevitable. But, moving it to Raw 75, airing on August 19th. Not a whole lot going on in the ring here. We've got matches of we've got the 1-2-3 Kid defeating Owen Hart by DQ, and I distinctly remember being a little disappointed by this match. We won't dwell on it too much, but yeah, just I had high hopes for it. Here, seeing the announcement of what the match was going to be going into this, I was like, oh man, 1-2-3 Kid and Brett was fucking off the hook. This is going to be even better, but it wasn't, unfortunately. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but maybe because I just had worked it up in my mind.
It was a bit of a letdown after the match we got with Bret Hart and 1-2-3 Kid.
We do get Duke the Dumpster Droese defeating Nick Barbary.
Okay.
Yeah. But to round out the night, we get Jeff Jarrett defeating Scott Taylor, a.k.a. Scotty Too Hottie.
The Worm.
Yeah. Yeah, ring-wise, I mean, there's nothing going on here. But, hey, did you guys know that Domino's is going to be delivering?
I'm beginning to think that they have maybe a financial deal with the WWF and Domino's. I'm starting to get that feel.
Yeah? Really?
Maybe. It just seems it.
I really got a hankering for a really shitty pizza right now.
By the way, folks, Domino's is not a paid advertiser with Wrasslin Raw.
Man, I hope we don't wind up with egg on our face on that one, because I wouldn't turn it down. I mean, after all, they deliver. So, anyway, there's a couple weird things that happen in this Raw. We get a promo from Abe Knuckleball Schwartz. He comes out to explain why. Now this, okay, before I go into that part of it, this is Steve Lombardi, a.k.a. Kimchi, a.k.a. the Brooklyn Brawler, a.k.a. who else?
Baseball face.
Briefly, the MVP. Yeah. He was the MVP.
Doink at one point.
Yeah, he was a doink. But yeah, so this is Steve Lombardi doing a revised version of the MVP gimmick. He's in a baseball outfit and he has like white paint with like the stitches, like the stitches of a baseball painted across his face. So calls himself Abe Knuckleball Schwartz. And he comes out to explain why the MLB was going on strike. And he talks about the misuse of taxpayer funds, and he blames the baseball fans overall. We know that Vince likes to get topical, and this one, this is like the whole Tanya Harding thing. This is on par with bitching about the Clintons. Just kind of bizarre. I had completely forgotten about this until we rewatched this. But I remember, now that I was reminded of it, back in 94, the whole baseball strike was a big fucking deal.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even a baseball fan, but the strike was a huge ordeal. And I believe that is still marked as the turning point for prices for baseball cards. Baseball cards plummeted after that strike and has really never regained their price since.
That is absolutely correct, because back then, as a kid, I collected baseball cards and I was very proud of my collection. I had, prior to the strike, my collection was worth, and again, I was a kid, so, I'm not trying to talk myself up like some serious collector, but I had a pretty decent collection. It was worth like $80. And for baseball cards, that's pretty fucking good for a kid. But after this, I kind of got jaded with it all and decided to just fucking sell them. And I got $13 for them.
And I don't know I know a lot of people like to mark this strike as the fall of baseball cards, but all cards across the board kind of went down, because I know around this time, any Penguin fans out there might remember the name Jaromir Jagr, but I had a Jaromir Jagr rookie card signed, and I looked it up a couple years ago. It goes for about 53 cents or something.
Jeez.
There's a pretty good Netflix documentary called Jack of All Trades that I just watched not too long ago. And it talks about baseball cards and how they went to shit. Basically talks about how it's just like the biggest scam business ever.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's like a thing where it's like, okay, it costs the same amount of money to produce this Jose Canseco rookie card as it does this Abe Knuckleball Schwartz card. But this Jose Canseco card is going to be worth 50 times more money.
And it seems like it was all perpetuated from in the late 80s, early 90s. There were a few really, really rare cards that came out, like a Harness Wagner card that there was only like 3 of in the world, and it went for like $1 million. So
Honus,
like all of a sudden, So
they
all
started
of a sudden,
overproducing. Right.
All of a sudden, people thought that all baseball cards were going to be worth $1 billion, and everyone and their mother started collecting them. It just wasn't going to go anywhere.
I had a Frank Thomas Topps Black Gold hologram card. I loved that thing. It was worth like $10.
Yeah, the hologram cards were pretty badass. I remember I had one that was a Deion Sanders, and it was like a you'd flip the card, and he would go from baseball to football, like he'd be in his baseball uniform and then football uniform. It was pretty cool.
Well, we're pretty far afield from wrestling here, boys. We should probably get back on track.
Well, we should talk about Leslie Nielsen some more. Yeah,
you're right. He's at poolside looking for the Undertaker. He knocks Ray Rougeau into the pool.
I'm okay with not talking about Leslie Nielsen anymore. The rest of this show.
There are briefly 2 Leslie Nielsens. Yeah. You're right. I mean, it's this whole thing was just an obvious ploy to try to get some kind of interest built up for something that not a whole lot of people were interested in.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but rewatching, I was just like, God, I can't wait till this is over.
Yeah, it was pretty cringy.
But it did really make me want to go watch a Naked Gun movie.
Yeah.
And watch some classic Leslie Nielsen.
Naked Gun. It made me want to watch Dracula Dead and Loving It.
That was a good one too. Or Police Squad.
Yeah. Airplane. So we got a King's Court here, and the $1 Million Man is the guest. For the record, we're still talking about Raw 75 here. King's Court, $1 Million Man is the guest, and they talk about the $1 Million Man buying the Undertaker and how Paul Bearer has not proven that this is a fake Undertaker. Jerry the King Lawler calls Paul Bearer the Goodyear blimp. They bring Paul Bearer out to join the conversation. Of course, the $1 Million Man then brings out his fake Undertaker. And they go back and forth a little bit, and the fake Undertaker starts to choke out Paul Bearer until the lights go out. And then the bell tolls, and purple lights glow all around the arena. And whenever we finally are able to see again, Paul Bearer is now free of the choking. He's down at ringside instead of up in the ring. And he says that the real Undertaker will be at SummerSlam. Ryan, what'd you think?
As bad as the whole fake Undertaker, real Undertaker storyline is, these theatrics are just as good as some of the earliers we've seen. I remember being young and like getting the chills down my spine when the lights go out and Undertaker, Paul Bearer is no longer being threatened and he's free. You know, it's just such great storytelling here, even if the match itself isn't going to pan out to be that great. I love seeing Paul Bearer here.
Yeah, something that I don't think we've mentioned yet, and it's kind of it's a small thing, but at the same time, it's one of the biggest things. That simple, very simple mechanism that they have of announcing the Undertaker. Lights go out, bell chimes, bong. It's almost become a universal pop for everybody everywhere now. Like I'm sitting here recording this with you guys. If all of a sudden my lights were to go out and I would hear that bong, I would go completely apeshit. I would love it.
It may be the greatest gimmick of all time, Undertaker.
And it's so simple. It's like I said, it's 2 things. The lights go out and then the bong. And everybody knows. So, and this is like a 30-year tradition of this now, you know?
And surprisingly, they almost struck gold twice with Kane. Come out and then boom, the flames come up in the ring. Yeah. That was pretty phenomenal too.
Well, don't forget about the Limp Bizkit and the Kid Rock too.
We were going to try to.
We have many years before we have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's get depressed and drink ourselves into oblivion when the time is right for that.
Best gimmick of all time. And I got to say that they got a little bit their heads got a little too big, thinking that, we created this gimmick. Anybody can do it. They were wrong. Mark Calloway deserves so much credit for making this work for so long, because obviously a guy like Brian Lee can't do it.
And even to this day, when you see The Undertaker come out with his new biker persona type thing, and you're still like, man, I miss the true Undertaker gimmick. It's just timeless. It's timeless.
Yeah.
rolling. So we'll move it on here. Suffice to say, I think we're all in agreement on that one. But we've got. Did you get a pizza ordered or anything? Because it's SummerSlam now, baby. It's August 29th. It's SummerSlam.
Yes, brother.
Call fucking Domino's. God damn it. Call fucking Domino's. I'm itching for it. They've drilled it into our brains. So SummerSlam airs on August 29th, and there's a couple things to talk about here. Not the least of which, I'll save that for time because I'm really excited to talk about the single greatest heel turn in wrestling history. So the first match, a little bit of a stinker. Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS defeat the Head Shrinkers by DQ. Second match of the night, Alundra Blaze defeats Bull Nakano to retain the WWF Women's Championship title. I don't know about you guys. I absolutely loved this match. This match sold me completely on Bull Nakano. I walked away from, I kind of liked her before. This match fucking solidified it. The storytelling going on here was amazing. The in-ring work wasn't quite as good as I expect a championship match to be. I might just be me being a little picky on that. And I'm not sure whether I would consider this worthy of being a match of the year contender, but it is certainly, for me, an honorable mention for match of the year because it's a women's championship match at a pay-per-view. And it's not just a women's championship match at a pay-per-view. It is an extremely good women's championship match at a pay-per-view. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, I agree with you almost 100% on this. This is a great match, and finally a great match between two women. Leading up to this, we hardly ever get a women's match. And when we do, it's typically been Alundra Blaze versus some no-namer that doesn't really go anywhere. Alundra Blaze wins, we move on. This one with Bull was an actual entertaining match. This was a really great thing to see. The women's belt, it really needed something like this to make it seem more than just a token holder, like, oh, we're throwing a bone towards the women. This was like a legitimate, oh, this is a real wrestling match. So it was really great to watch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like you said, Bartlett, definitely worth honorable mention for sure. Just two great workers. I'm not a huge fan of women's wrestling, to be honest, but these were just two great workers and great storytelling in the ring. It was a little sloppy, but when you have Bull Nakano coming in out of nowhere, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Out of Japan.
Yeah. So that being said, there's a lot, again, there's a few things to talk about in this SummerSlam, but that's pretty close to top of the list of highlights for this SummerSlam. Just a great, great match to watch. And again, it really sold me on Bull Nakano. It was sad to see that she wouldn't last long in the WWF here. So we'll move it along. Razor Ramon defeats Diesel to win back the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the IC belt is back where it belongs at this time in the WWF. I love Razor as IC champ during this time, so I'm happy to see that. The Walter Payton stuff was kind of weird. Walter Payton was in his corner because Diesel had Shawn Michaels. The finish was a little weird. It was good. It was entertaining. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, Walter Payton was just kind of like randomly thrown in there. I guess this was in Chicago. This was the first. I want to say this was the first event held in the new United Center. I think they kept plugging that leading up to it, as well as Domino's Pizza. So
I also believe there was a small segment by the Macho Man claiming this sold more tickets than Woodstock.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
And he was obsessed with saying Chi-Town. I think he said Chi-Town as many times as Tatanka said you sold out.
Yeah, you're right. He did. Oh my God. I completely forgot about that. Chi-Town. All right. So, we'll move it on here to Tatanka defeating Lex Luger, and we get we get such a strong piece of drama here. Like, I can barely contain myself with this.
It should have won an Oscar.
The single greatest heel turn in wrestling history. Tatanka, it turns out, is the one that has sold out to the $1 Million Man. I got chills just thinking about it just now. Nothing's ever going to top this.
Picture the scene. All right. We're all rewatching this years later. I'm sitting on my couch. I'm watching this. I have my Domino's pizza in my lap. I'm watching this match, eating my Domino's pizza. And it happens. It happens. I throw my pizza into the air. Hits the ceiling. Couldn't believe it. Could not believe it.
I completely agree, Joe. I was just completely taken by surprise here. I mean, leading up to this, I loved both Lex Luger and Tatanka. So I really couldn't pick who I wanted to go with here. But when Tatanka turned, my mind exploded. I said, come on. The Native American, the true American, how could he turn on Lex Luger? And I paused it and I cried for a few minutes before I had to resume because of how upset I was.
Yeah. Thankfully, the WWE Network has that jump scene now. You could have just, jumped to the next match, Jeff Jarrett and Mabel. Just kind of help the tears.
Why, Tatanka? Why?
This is the last show / event of Raw so far, 1994, and I don't even know if I want to keep going after this. Like, where do we go from here?
I'm shook right now.
maybe I have like some kind of post-traumatic heel turn disorder going on here because I can't. It's like on a loop in my brain. Just the slap. And the realization, and then the money changing hands and Tatanka getting paid, and just, oh my God.
Not to mention, could you just imagine what is going through Lex Luger's mind here? Right? The close friend Tatanka.
He must have thought that shit was like, oh my God.
He thought the world was ending.
I didn't even think of that. Like, you want to talk about minds being blown. Holy shit. Lex Luger must have like died a little bit inside that day.
Right. I mean, think about being the proudest American on earth, and then the second proudest American on earth just stabs you in the back.
After he's been calling you a sellout 9,000 times over the last couple weeks.
It turns out that he's the sellout.
I feel bad for the announcers having to sell this shit.
God. All right. Well, suffice it to say, single greatest heel turn in wrestling history. We'll move it along from here, but
no sarcasm.
It'll never get better than this. So we have a disappointment of a match again, and I'm sorry to bring it up this way and to introduce it this way, but there's really no other way to talk about it. So we have Bret Hart defeating Owen Hart in a steel cage match to retain the WWF Championship. For me personally, I think that this was just kind of a really bad match and an absolute waste of two of the greatest to ever get in the squared circle. They're both excellent technical wrestlers. They're both excellent in-ring storytellers. Whenever it's them, doing their thing. But in this particular case, we had a third entity in the steel cage. And I really feel that the steel cage absolutely ruined what could have been a fantastic match. I feel both guys, both Owen and Bret, were shit at incorporating the steel cage into the match. There were way too many stalls where it was like somebody just laying in the middle of the ring and somebody taking 10 fucking minutes to climb to the top to only get pulled back down at the last second. And just what could have been something good was just completely ruined by adding this extra element to the match. That's my 2 cents. I don't want to get too far into it because I'm still recovering from Tatanka's heel turn. But Joe, what did you think of this match?
Yeah, I agree that the gimmick match aspect of it kind of ruined it. And it's really even more disappointing since we just came from a few months ago. We had a great match between these two.
Yeah.
And then it gets ruined with this. The only thing that was, I don't know, the only thing that was, as far as like being shit at incorporating the steel cage into the match, I think there was too much trying to crawl out the door part of it. It was just back and forth with trying to crawl out the door and like, oh, I can't make it. I can't make it out. And then the other one pulls them back in. There was too much of that. The only decent thing about this match, in my opinion, was the end where Owen, it was pretty impressive to see Owen just kind of hanging there by his leg.
Yeah.
By 1 foot, basically. But yeah, other than that, this was really disappointing.
Yeah, there's not a ton left to say. Like you both said, going into this, I was ecstatic, expecting to get a fantastic match between the two like we've had before. And the steel cage just really ruined it. It made for a lackluster match and not what I was expecting out of these two.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like WWE over the years has always tried to recreate things that go well, and it doesn't always work out. I know one thing that, like Austin versus Rock, they did that, like 3 times during a WrestleMania, and those were always good.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. It's very rare that you get that, and they always try to recreate these things, and it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't work out, and it definitely didn't work out here.
Yeah. I think we've said all that can really be said about this match. Just overall unfortunate. Final match of the night, we've got the Undertaker defeating the fake Undertaker. Ryan, you have a note in here. You want to elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to note about the match. It's pretty terrible. It's sad because we finally get the real Undertaker back after his injury, but his match against the $1 Million Man's fake Undertaker is going to be pretty sad. The one thing very kind of confusing was towards the beginning, Paul Bearer comes out with this urn that's about 12 times the size of the normal urn that the Undertaker typically comes out with. And then he opens the top and this spotlight comes shining out of it. And he just starts shining it all over the crowd, running around. And it felt kind of bizarre, really. Then the match starts, and of course, the real Undertaker, Paul Bearer's Undertaker, comes away with the win, and we're going to get the true Undertaker back.
Yeah, this was bad. The whole thing, the whole match was terrible. And yeah, I forgot about that light thing, the spotlight just shining around. It's just so cheesy. It's like they're just going over the top with the theatrics at this point.
Yeah, up until this point, I've kind of enjoyed the theatrics, but the urn with the spotlight, it fell flat.
Yeah, I agreed on all points. The whole thing, Undertaker versus fake Undertaker, $1 Million Man buying Undertaker, Leslie Nielsen being brought in to find the Undertaker, the whole thing was just lame. We've got it noted here that Leslie Nielsen is present during SummerSlam, and they do a couple vignettes with him, but they're all just lame. I really wish that I had something positive to say about it, but I don't at all. Some notable happenings for SummerSlam 94 here. So we've got Jerry Lawler co-hosting at the announce table, so that's always good. This is Randy Savage's last WWF pay-per-view appearance. Kind of unfortunate there.
We still have him for a couple months.
Right, just not on pay-per-views. This is another somewhat sad thing. This is the first and last WWF pay-per-view appearance for Bull Nakano. After such a great match, she's not going to appear on pay-per-view again. Her run was pretty short here. We already mentioned the single greatest heel turn in wrestling history, so it doesn't need to belabor that anymore. We do get and I thought this was funny, the on-screen return of the British Bulldog, but he was dressed in like his street clothes, and he looked like the mild-mannered alter ego of a superhero. like there's the British Bulldog as we know him, with like the Union Jack tights and the dreads or not the dreads, the cornrows and all that stuff. But then we've got, it's like Clark Kent from Superman. We've got Davy Boy Smith, not the British Bulldog, Davy Boy Smith sitting in the audience there, and he's got like a normal pair of pants on and a fanny pack, of course, a normal like t-shirt looking thing, and he's wearing glasses and his hair is different, and it's just, I thought it was kind of funny. Owen and Brett, the Owen Brett cage match. This is the first pay-per-view cage match since the Ultimate Warrior battled Rick Rude at SummerSlam 1990. So this is going to be the last event and the last WWF television event of August of 1994. Joe, did you have any wrestling news for us for August of 94?
Yeah, August 94, we got, as you know, WWF had a radio show at the time, and Tammy Sitch, otherwise known as Sunny, was making appearances regularly on that radio show. So it sounds like we're close to her debut here. And Vince McMahon, of course, as we said earlier, he was not guilty in the steroid trial, so that is over. There's rumors that Papa Shango will be returning soon, but under a new name and gimmick. So there's something to look forward to.
Okay.
Perhaps introducing Joe's bachelor party.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Survivor Series, I'm sorry, not Survivor Series. SummerSlam tickets went on sale for no higher than $25.
Really?
Which is pretty low considering it was a new building and everything.
That's less than the cost of the pay-per-view.
Yeah. SummerSlam reader pool was pretty much right down the middle. Thumbs up 43%, thumbs down 42%. And the best match voted was Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. Worst match was Undertaker versus Undertaker. And the only other thing I have here is there's Brian Armstrong has started appearing at house shows. So we know Brian Armstrong as the Road Dogg.
Ah, okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. And that's it, guys. We are caught up.
Here we go. That's it.
I don't know about you guys, but I am looking forward to us going head forward into our regular scheduled programming here with our normal format. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, don't forget we'll be doing the pay-per-views as well. We'll be recapping all of those along with every episode of Monday Night Raw.
In order as they happen, yes. I agree with both of you. This has been fun, but I'm really looking forward to getting to our ordinary format.
I also think it's worth noting, for our fans that, going forward, unlike a lot of other podcasts out there who like to pick and choose some of the very best and just kind of highlight that, here at our podcast, we are going to cover all of Raw, including its warts and its terrible episodes. We're not just highlighting the very best. We're doing the mediocre, the bad, and the worst.
And you're going to get a jobber of the week out of it too. When's the last time a podcast talked about the jobbers this way?
That's right. And at the end of the year, we're going to give our own match of the year awards and discuss all of those matches too. So we are watching every single Raw match and every single pay-per-view match and picking our winners.
I'm really looking forward to it. So for our listeners out there, just a final reminder, this is the last episode of our series Raw so far. And the next time you hear us, the next time one of our episodes is posted, it will be in our normal format of one episode of Raw per one episode of Wrasslin Raw. And that's going to start with Raw 76. That's going to air on September 12th, 1994. So yeah, that's it, folks. We're done with this series. We're done with Raw so far. I want to thank you all again for joining us. It's been an utter treat going back and doing a year and a half in 5 episodes. If you like what we're doing here and you want to connect with us, you can look us up on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter under the handle @Wrasslin Raw. That's @WRASSLINRAW, all one word. Also, don't forget to click subscribe on there to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw popping up in your podcast feed. We'll see you on the other side, folks. For Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.